What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you, and one that has been on my radar. I heard a couple of singles. I actually own one of their previous albums, though admittedly, I wasn't super impressed by it, even though I actually saw this band live. But I wanted to check this out because these singles sounded pretty gnarly, and this is a pretty vicious album. We're going to go over the latest offering from Orthodox, A Door Left Open. This also comes out on the 6th of June on Century Media Records. This band formed in 2011 in Nashville, Tennessee. This is their 5th album overall. I got into this band on their 3rd album, Let It Take Its Course, which, again, I wasn't super impressed by. I thought it was pretty decent. Saw them live, and I couldn't help but to notice that the frontman looked a lot like Will Wheaton. At the time, I don't know if he's changed his hairstyle or facial hair or what. He looked like Will Wheaton. I almost wanted to yell out, "Shut up, Wesley." He looked so much like Will Wheaton. But this band has been described as kind of a hybrid between nu metal and metallic hardcore, so much so that I've actually seen the term nu metalcore. That's NU metalcore surface, and that alone in print is probably enough to make an edgelord's head explode like that dude in Scanners. Legit, that's the nightmare scenario. No, their forces of evil have combined and they're ruining all things cult and true and pure about metal. And to that I say, listen, grow the fuck up. Anyway, I wanted to check this out because I still like nasty, violent metalcore. And in terms of nu metal, yeah, it's more of a novelty or a nostalgic thing. When it's done well, it's still mostly just okay. But, I was kind of curious as to how this band would really employ that, because on the album I have, I felt like it was mostly just a hardcore album with a little bit more groove to it, which, that's honestly a lot of hardcore anyway. But I knew I could rope him into it because the gentleman that produced this record and apparently had a huge impact on the band, at least according to their liner notes, was one Raina LeBeouf, who does a lot of work with the Acacia Strain. And he is a big Acacia Strain fan.
Yeah, I'm a big Acacia Strain fan. I don't care. I will probably always be a big fan of that band because that band is just nothing but nasty heaviness all the time. I'd never heard of Orthodox until today, but that seems to be the history of me with this channel anyway, I've never heard this band. So, of course, I wanted to dive in. And then he told me who produced it, and I was like, well, yeah, I like the Acacia Strain. So, I thought maybe it was a good thing. And then he told me the term nu metalcore, and I visibly did a face palm, just kind of man, why? Out of all the things you're going to mesh together, why mesh that together? But I have to be honest with you, this record is pretty damn good, and it is pretty damn heavy, and that's just at all times.
For the most part, I would say this leans more into metallic hardcore and kind of a variety of different styles of metallic hardcore. This definitely shares some similarities with, more recent metallic hardcore acts that have gained more prominence. Jesus Piece, and of course Knocked Loose. But this also has elements of the more mathcore oriented bands like Botch. Car Bomb was a big one. Even Candiria, which I rarely ever get a chance to reference that band.
And I love the shit out of Candiria.
And when it comes down to the nu metal aspects, because they're definitely there, it's more harsh. It's not the pristine Korn albums and shit that made it on the radio. This is stuff that is, definitely similar to Slipknot's Iowa. We definitely heard it on here, minus the DJs. Also bands like Tala, which they have an album coming up. I'm kind of curious about it. Who knows? I really wasn't a huge fan of the last one, but they're possibly rabid. I don't know. That band needs some shots of something. And a relic from the past that is kind of associated with Slipknot, if you remember them, Gizmachi, which employed a lot more polyrhythmic drums and, kind of blended again metallic hardcore with nu metal and, again, almost math metal. And this whole album is feral.
Mm-hmm.
It's mean. It is aggressive. It's jagged, and it is heavy as fuck.
And I think that's kind of an understatement. But right from the rip, the opening track, Can You Save Me? First of all, I like what this band does with their use of atmosphere. I just have to say that. And it's not typical atmosphere. They use a lot of electronic bleeps or video game noises. The opening track, Can You Save Me, opens up with what I would compare it to as an RC Pro-Am car revving up.
Dude, it's these big, stretchy, elastic squeals on top of these big, hefty, syncopated chugs. And frequently on here, I mean, of course there's breakdowns. This is metallic hardcore. If there weren't, it probably wouldn't be metallic hardcore. But this band likes to accent a lot of their breakdowns with these just ridiculous squeals and sound effects. And that is definitely a part of the atmosphere in here. The rest of the atmosphere are these moments of like electronic noise, like weird sizzling humming in the background, some samples here and there, spoken word. But a lot of the atmosphere in here is generated by the band itself just playing and what sounds like destroying their instruments. The production here, I mean, it's Randall LeBeouf. If you like Acacia Strain and how heavy he gets the performances out of them, it's very similar, albeit I would say more sizzly and just, I don't know, like a little bit more, I don't know, gritty sounding.
Well, the Acacia Strain has like a bigger, heftier, beefy tone, whereas this is beef, but it's cooked differently. This snarls and sizzles and just kind of has a static over everything all the time. It makes it more visceral sounding and more mean because everything on here is mean. There really aren't moments on here that I wouldn't classify as just straight beatdowns all the time.
I mean, it's percussive. Like, this album essentially duct tapes you to a chair and then beats you in the eardrums with like hammers and shit. Everything on here feels percussive, whether it's the guitars, the bass, even the vocals. The vocals on here range from, again, that kind of like revved up nu metal sound where like, oh, Corey Taylor's getting angry, we can tell, to just flat out hardcore growls and screams. The vocal cadences are really interesting. They don't always follow the big syncopated riffs, which this album is just chock full of syncopated heavy riffs. If you love breakdowns, you will probably dig a good chunk of this. And the breakdowns, again, have character. They have some variety, even in terms of the rhythms. Again, there's stuff on here that kind of goes off into like, more mathcore-centric stuff. There's even some more like Meshuggah-esque ones on here, like Keep Your Blessings. The whole opening section on there, I don't even know what time signature it was in, but it was nuts.
It sounds like something off of Colossus, like maybe like Do Not Look Down or something like that. But it's a little bit off time. I don't want to say anything goes full off the rails into like gent territory. I didn't catch a whole lot of polyrhythms. Just comes in like a beat early or a beat late or just something to just make it a little bit different from everything else.
Or they'll like stretch out a note or something like that, because I mean, you get like frequent moments where they're just kind of like bending and making the riffs lurch a little bit when they're not making like just the strangest noises. Sacred Place in particular opens up with what I would call a nu metal alarm clock. Like, it just sounds like, hey, wake up, you have to get your Jenkos on. But that goes into like hefty syncopated chugs, again, kind of a la Meshuggah, like just wailing on that top string. And then somewhere in there, Qbert dies. That's the only thing I could use to really explain that noise, because there are like noises that sound like they came out of like an 80s arcade, which, I mean, to me, that's a sacred place because that's where I grew up.
Spent a lot of time in 80s arcades, let me tell you what.
The last track has a moment on there that has just this moment of distortion and squealiness that sounds like I Died in Galaga. Again, that machine ate a lot of quarters of mine. But again, like, this kind of contributes to the overall off-kilter, twisted feel of this. Like, when this thing isn't chugging your face off, it's conveying so much angst, so much rage. Like, this is such a pissed off, mean-spirited album, and when it's not pissed off, it's, I don't know, kind of like desperate and agonized and trying to tell you maybe where the bodies are hidden.
Like the song Dreadweight. Here are the notes I had for that song. Kill people in the pit, windmill to the face, stanky breakdown, pure beatdown. That actually describes a lot of this record. Like, it's unrelenting, and there's not much by way of time to catch your breath. These songs just rapid fire, one after the other, just bam, 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 and it keeps hitting you as hard as it can.
Yeah, and there's not a moment on here where I'd say they pulled their punches. Like, there's definitely moments where it's like catchier riffs, like they're not just the big syncopated, chugs and lots of like noise in the background. But when it comes down to like really kind of like pulling back on the brutality, I don't think that really happens on here. Even in some of the more melodic moments, like Will You Hate Me, the closing track, it has probably the most melodic moment on the entire album. And they waited until the last track to actually deliver that. Good on you guys. There is a clean break in there where, honestly, that's the first time I think I heard clean guitars on here. And it gets in this like fun, kind of like almost jazzy sort of bounce.
It's where Candiria comes into play, because Candiria love to do that shit. It's heavy as shit, but then they like to do jazz things.
I was kind of expecting them to kind of like just like rev back into a breakdown, which they did, but I expected them to kind of like abandon the melody because, again, melody is not a big thing on here. But they kind of stuck with it. They kind of gave it like a metallic hardcore meets Deftones sort of vibe. And there were some other surprises in terms of their transitions. Like a lot of the transitions I hear are sharp as hell, like jagged start-stop riffing. But occasionally they have some like really clever ones, like Keep Your Blessings. You know, the whole song is just a syncopated beat down. It's vicious, it's gnarly. And it gets to this point in the bridge where you start getting some dissonant atmosphere and it starts kind of revving up the song. Like it does a very Slipknot-esque sort of thing. You get into that Slipknot stomp. I mean, we all know it from Surfacing. If we've listened to Slipknot, I'm sure a good chunk of you at least have. But it kind of revs it up to the point where like, all right, it keeps getting faster with each measure. The thing that I thought they would do was kind of break into like a hardcore D beat. Like it felt like, you know, the point where the singer does this and then everyone kills each other at the venue. But no, it drops into this big slowdown with the most noisy, ugly breakdown possibly on this entire album. Like it comes out of nowhere and just slaps you. And I kind of like that. Like it completely caught me off guard. It was not what I was expecting. And it, once again, like cemented like a different kind of heavy on here.
There were even a couple of thrashy moments, which by the time I got to this song, I wasn't really expecting either. The song Godless Grace has a straight thrash riff in it, and even, I guess, more of what I would call a metalcore riff, because there is some melody in that riff.
Yeah, Searching for a Pulse, there is like kind of a thrashy section in there too, with a lead, like a legit solo.
Yeah.
It's the only time it shows up, and I mean, it's probably the only time it was really welcome. I don't know if it necessarily fit, but there are some moments in here that didn't necessarily fit, and that was partially due to the guest stars in here. Now, this has 3 guest vocalists on it. You have Matt McDougall from Boundaries on Blend In with the Weak, which he delivers some solid death metal roars. I actually kind of want to check out Boundaries now after hearing him growl his guts out. Commits Consequence features Andrew Newfield of Comeback Kid. He throws in some good hardcore shouts. His, section right before the breakdown I think is nice, and I like that breakdown as well because it's just from your standard like hardcore syncopated beatdown to kind of a sludgy swing. I just kind of like that whole kind of groove, like there was a little bit of swagger to it. But the weirdest one, and just like a guy that I really wouldn't expect to be on an album like this.
Not at all.
On One Less Body. And that is Braun Daler of Mastodon.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. And then, listening to this record, because by the time you get down to where Braun is, it's the 9th track down. And so at this point in the game, I'm going, how in the hell are they going to fit Braun Daler in? Because there's not a moment that would allude to having something melodic enough to implore Braun Daler's vocals, whom, as you know, has a beautiful voice and top-notch at what he does.
That's drums, too.
So in this song, again, I would compare it to things like Slipknot or the Handshake Murders, just a bunch of start-stop riffs and a bunch of awesome kind of off-time chugs, and there, at no point in the song did I go, how are they going to get Braun Daler in? There's some spoken word, and I thought, well, maybe they had him do some spoken word. But then towards the end of the song, there is a clean singing part. And I mean, it's cool because it's Braun Daler and he does it very well, but it doesn't fit at all.
Yeah, it sounds like the song is briefly haunted by Braun Daler. Like his vocals in the back, there's a kind of a ghostly filter over them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting that they would try to throw in clean vocals on a song is just fucking nasty heavy as that song.
Yeah.
But yeah, that moment on here was probably one of the few moments in here where I just feel like they kind of shoehorned in that, and cool of them actually getting Braun Daler.
Yeah, shit.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But it didn't necessarily work with me. It just became a kind of a weird moment on the album. And again, weird moments are all over this album. Some of the transitions, they'll start muffling all the sound, or do weird electronic little break beats and such in between. A very Slipknot-esque sort of move.
Slipknot or Chimera, something like that. Just, you get these weird noises and you're like, oh, there's the sample guy finally.
Yeah. Or again, like all the weird like harmonics and such they'll throw in. But a lot of that actually kind of works with like just the violent nature of this album. And honestly, some of the more nu metal oriented tracks are pretty well done. Again, I think this band, you know, in terms of like nu metal, they went for like the heavier bands, the ones that weren't chasing the radio and such. I mean, all right, Slipknot definitely chased the radio, but we're talking about like Iowa. Blend In with the Weak. I mean, that's one of the more straightforward songs in there, and it is just based on a simple but kind of hefty nu metal-esque riff. Like it even has like a cool little harmonic tag in it, like, you know, I don't know, 25 different Machine Head songs. Good vocal trade-offs. It's a more straight-ahead kind of groovy song. And honestly, like, despite it reminding me of like flat out like, you know, nu metal, it honestly wasn't bad. It wasn't like a horrible memory. Like, they don't try to squeeze in a DJ or anything on here. Like, that might have kind of ruined it. And it really kind of taken away from the atmosphere, even if it was like more of a Sid Wilson sort of thing.
Yeah, that dream is dead for most nu metal. I want to just say that for any nu metal bands out there. Stop with the DJ. It worked for Fred Durst and it worked for Slipknot, but the rest of it, nah.
Yeah, if you're a new metal band, then don't bother with the DJ.
Don't do it.
I mean, don't maybe be like a nu metal band either. I don't know if we really need that. As far as any negatives on here, I mean, there were a couple of tracks that didn't hit me quite as hard. Body Chalk, I just thought was, you know, short, frenzied song. It kind of does everything else that this album does in general, just in a more condensed form. And Commit to Conscience, again, I thought was just kind of a shorter track. I did think, you know, it had some clever breakdowns and such in it, but, you know, all these songs hit really hard. So, I mean, This is like one I would just say, like, just play it from start to finish because it's fucking vicious.
I don't really have a whole lot of complaints either. The track with Bron Daler on it, The Oneless Body, I don't think that he fits necessarily, but it's cool that you got him. Another minor issue that I had at least one point in the record was if you get two guitarists, maybe don't have them match the tones, so it creates a little bit more depth and a little bit more body, but at the same time, with as vicious as this album is, I'm not so sure you would want to do that. I don't know. I guess a piece of me was just thinking like, I hope this is as heavy as the Acacia Strain, and it is, but it's different, so it's not necessarily a gripe. I just might tweak with the tones a little bit, but it's not a big deal. Overall, though, I'm going to give this record a solid 4 stars. This record, again, is violently heavy, unrelenting in that nature, and like just around every turn, just everything is heavier than everything else all the time, and that's really cool. When they do get to breakdowns, man, be prepared. I mean, you might want to buy medical insurance because you're going to hit your head on something, probably on purpose, too, because the music commands you to do so. You can tell the drummer in this album is hitting those drums hard. Like full extensions at all times, like kicking through the kick drum head, slamming a stick through the snare drum head, just picking up the drum set and throwing it at the crowd during the middle of the set. That's kind of what I picture. It does employ a lot of really neat things as far as atmosphere is concerned. The record isn't littered with it by any means, but it's just cool with the different uses of pick slides and squealies and all the video game noises. I don't know, I kind of like that. This overall, to me, reminds me of something I would have listened to when I was probably in my early to mid-20s. Bands like, again, Gizmochi, Car Bomb, Candiria, A Life Once Lost, The Handshake Murders, Remembering Never, stuff like that. Because this record is just constantly heavy. If you're into those kinds of things and you just want a violent slap to the face, I would recommend checking this record out.
I am also at a 4. This thing is feral. It is an absolutely vicious sounding album with only brief stops of atmosphere to not necessarily kind of cool you down at all, just to like maybe give you a little bit of a breather just to punch you in the throat again. The production here is monstrous. This is just Chug City. Like, my God, dude. So many syncopated breakdowns, but again, it never got stale or boring because they kept peppering in these weird accents and off the wall transitions. Like, this thing is jagged and fucking moves around like a fucking squirrel on meth. The nu metal elements in here, I would say, are minimal. Like, they're kind of like blended in the sound overall. I mean, you'll definitely pick up on some here and there, but they're not like annoying. They didn't put me off. Mm-hmm. That was kind of my fear there. Like, they were going to break into like, you know, a standard Korn riff and then dude starts rapping like Fred Durst, that would have fucking killed it. Like, I might have turned it off. But that didn't happen. This stays fierce. This stays monstrous the entire time. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the whiplash that this album tried to give me. If you were a big fan of, again, Knocked Loose and Jesus Piece in terms of like more modern bands, but again, like a lot of the bands you brought up, Candiria, especially Gizmachi, Car Bomb, like the transitions in particular, remind me of Car Bomb, Coalesce, Botch, shit like that. Check this album out. This thing is an absolute monster. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you were new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They're only 99 cents, and our lone perk is doing a members-only live stream, which we will probably do around the middle of the month. We just got to find a time to do it. We will definitely alert you. But memberships are the main way to support the channel now. We also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our hats and shirts. That is linked down below. And there's a join button down there if you would like to join up and talk about noisy-ass fucking hardcore or new metalcore. I don't know if that term's gonna stick, but that's what they're calling themselves, and that's what the cool kids are calling them. And we're not cool, so we didn't know what to call them. But yeah, join button down below. Press it if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, do it or don't. We don't really. It doesn't really bother us if you don't join, but I mean, you should if you want to be kind of cool. The main reason, though, that we invite you to join or even be here in the first place is because we are, again, thankful that you are here. Thank you for being a part of this channel. Anyway, tons of content coming your way. Album reviews, discography rankings. We got our new Thralls Greatest Hits that go alongside of the discography rankings. Nick's Never Ending Collection updates. Just tons of metal content all the time. It's all for you guys because we appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys absolutely roll. Tons of content coming in the future. So one more big thank you because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.